Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. Yes, indeed. I am Richard Dugan, your host, and our very special guest today. You know, I say that every single program. It's because it's true. Every one of our guests is very special. I will tell you that when we have a guest who wants to talk to you and share with you about your superpower, you didn't know you had a superpower? Seriously? Well, guess what? You're going to discover and use your greatest superpower, and we're going to talk about it from the perspective of metaphysics, spirituality, and bubblegum. Carina Marshall is my guest. Carina, thank you so much. This is I'm excited because life's purpose is what we're all about in sharing with people, finding that superpower, though I've never thought about that before. But since reading all of the information in regards to this, I'm having an outfit made with a giant D on my chest. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Richard. I am honored to be in your program. And as you said, each guest is special, but you are special too because you have this portal for us to reach other people, and in the process, we all gain from the momentum and the wisdom of what we're sharing. So thank you so much.
Well, you are very welcome. It's exciting for me because of the 3 areas that you're talking about. We'll get into the bubblegum area here shortly. But metaphysics, I consider myself to be a metaphysician. I was born and raised Catholic. Also, when in my first marriage, was exposed to the Eastern Rite of the Catholic Church, still under the Pope. And it was wonderful, the ritual, the ceremony, the tradition. Those are the things that I love about it. I was a Baha'i for about 1.5 years in the 90s. I've studied all kinds of different philosophies across the planet. I always seem to be brought back to the one that sort of started it with my metaphysical primer, Autobiography of a Yogi. And yet I'm open to talking about all of these different philosophies. I'm curious as to where you started out in your life philosophically.
Wow, Richard, we have a lot of things in common. I was raised Catholic too. I was born in the Philippines. So the Philippines is like 90% Catholic. And, but my parents were just very open Christians. And I also was married for 23 years, got divorced, and worked in corporate America, and been to many countries and lived in a couple of them. Own my own business. I've written a book and even married a monk, an ex-monk, that is. So it sounds like I'm living this TV show of life, but at the same time, I am an ordinary, stable, and somewhat conservative woman who unlearned a lot of my beliefs and relearned how to live a life of celebration rather than suffering. So in a way, I'm somewhat of a radical because I followed my inspiration, meaning curiosity instead of conviction. And my life is no longer fear-based, but love-based. And I started this from ever since I was a little girl. And metaphysics has always been a curiosity as well as a place, an area where I'm very curious about. And we can talk about that a little bit later.
Really. It's interesting too because when I was another one of my philosophical experiences, 15 years working for a Christian radio station, was used very loosely because when I first started working there in 1980, they actually had a program on Sunday nights. It kind of blew me away at first because I'm going, wait a minute, how does this fit? But apparently it fit because they were willing to pay the money. Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, that was a program they had on that station. I was really surprised, but it was one of the greatest educations that I was ever paid for. And it's one of those aspects that I hold near and dear, and I wish that more people could have those kinds of experiences, or at the very least, through their educational process. My niece apparently is teaching comparative religions, which I haven't called her to talk to her about it yet, but I'm quite intrigued by the fact that she's doing that. And it seems to me that it would certainly open up a lot of eyes as to the ways in which other people live as well as believe. And seems to me that's to me one of the great transformative um, elements that one can incorporate in their lives. You think?
I totally agree. I think when we are curious about how other people are living their spiritual lives, for instance, it's just like traveling. People who've traveled around the world or have visited places outside of where they grew up from, they start expanding their consciousness. They start seeing things from other people's kind of lifestyle or cultures. And I think that's the start where we start opening up to ideas that we've never considered before. And so it's a very healthy process where we are reading about other people's beliefs or experiencing travel, and really just accepting people for their diversity and a celebration of the diversity of life in general.
Mhm. Well, I know that in some circles the word diversity is a bad word. It's unfortunate, and yet we as a population on the planet are everything and diverse. I mean, good heavens, we have not only a myriad of different skin tones to start with, body shapes, and so forth, the physiology, the biology, as well as all of the different levels of the emotions. We all experience the same emotions. It's just the intensity with which we experience them. And then, of course, there are and I even go as deep as to say there's all kinds of different things you can drink, all kinds of different kinds of foods you can eat, places you can live, and so on and so forth. And that's why it always struck me as strange and rather illogical that there was only one path, only one way to the divine, to God, to the source of all, the creator, et cetera, et cetera. Did you ever find that that was a bit of a paradox you couldn't quite get past and said, hey, there's got to be more?
Um, yes, I've experienced that in the past, and I think that's just a natural process of finding out that one path that really works for you. And if I can summarize it, at least in my experience, it's really the path to exploring your inner world, what's within you. And that's a very rich area of discovering actually your superpower, of discovering our connection through that inner world to the divine, to the spirit, whatever your label is or whatever your religious background is. It's actually your connection and my connection to infinite intelligence or divine spirit, if you would like to label it that way. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm curious though, because you use the two words within the subtitle. To you, what's the difference between metaphysics and spirituality? Because when I posed that word to some of these ministers and pastors and laity at the Christian station, I said, "Do you know that Christianity is metaphysics? Is metaphysical?" And they said, "Oh no, it's not." I said, "Do you even know the definition of the word?"
Mhm.
Thing that Jesus taught us about why we live the way we live had to do with metaphysics. Oh, well, what is that? Well, the definition is beyond the physical.
Exactly. To me, metaphysical is beyond the five senses. We know what the five senses are. Another way to define metaphysics is something that's invisible or non-physical.
Mhm.
And to me, the metaphysical world is the world of energy. And everything is composed of energy. We all know Albert Einstein and his famous equation EMC square, that matter and energy are interchangeable, and that energy is never destroyed. So, in terms of metaphysics, by understanding metaphysics a little bit more, we realize that energy is composed of vibration. And since everything is vibration, we are all vibrating and we are all vibrational energy at the same time. Spirituality, on the other hand, incorporates the beliefs of certain groups of people. So, it could be directed towards a particular path, if you could call it that way, as opposed to metaphysics, which is just governed by some natural laws that would not change no matter what your definition of spirituality is.
I am so continually intrigued by these different aspects of existence. Matter of fact, in the last interview that I did, we were talking about frequencies. And quite honestly, there's no difference between what you just described, energy
Mhm.
and frequency, because energy has frequencies. um, on YouTube, for example, and of course, this is more uh, based on sound, there are a myriad of different videos, at least that's what they are, with a sound of a particular frequency, 536 hertz or 407. And then there are those who will even promote a specific frequency that's supposed to help you maybe to meditate or increase your brain power and those kinds of things, which I find fascinating. One of my guests on a regular basis on this program is Jonathan Goldman, and he
Mhm.
talks about that all the time. I mean, that's what he does. I mean, that's his thing. And so I think about that in terms, especially in terms of um, the the vibration of, let's say, the earth. I mean, that even if you were to be able to find a place on the earth that was quiet enough, you could hear, and some people have said they can hear the hum, that tone, that vibration of the earth itself.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Frequency is just a label for a collection of vibrations. So, human beings, each one of us, we have what I call dominant vibration, which equates to your frequency. So, that's consisting of our thoughts, our beliefs, and some beliefs are silent, and our emotions or our feelings. So collectively, these three aspects create your vibrational manner. And that equates to your frequency, which attracts other frequencies or magnetizes it.
Mhm.
So the energy of each person has the capacity and capability to attract a desired outcome if we know how to manage our mind, our thoughts, manage our emotions, and also be more conscious of what our beliefs are. Are our beliefs limiting us or are they empowering us? It's defining those things that make us conscious in how we're vibrating a frequency that actually attracts and magnetizes the reality that we are experiencing.
Mm. We are having a great conversation here on the program. Very special guest today, Carina. Excuse me, a little choked up there.
Marshall, Carina Marshall,
Carina
yeah.
Marshall. We're talking about discovering and using your greatest superpower as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host here on Tell Me Your Story, and Carina Marshall is my very special guest. We're talking about her work in regards to the book that she has released called Discover and Use Your Greatest Superpower, Metaphysics, Spirituality, and Bubblegum. We'll get into those categories in a moment. You say using your greatest superpower, which implies that we have other superpowers that maybe we don't even know about. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a very fair assessment. I mean, I'm still in the process of discovering my full superpower, but I've discovered a little bit of it. And again, going back to the world of energy and that we are vibrational beings, and we're creating our reality. It's an important foundational assumption, or at least in my experience, it's my belief that there is always two aspects of each person. There is a Carina in the physical that's conversing with you, Richard, and there's a Carina in the non-physical, which is coexisting with where I am right now, as well as there's a non-physical Richard that's coexisting in the Richard I'm talking with right now. And in this non-physical version of us is in tune with divine intelligence, with infinite intelligence. And when we know how to go in our inner world and connect with that non-physical version of us, what I call tuning in to that frequency, then we feel and exercise our superpower because we get to put a different kind of lens to look at the world and a different kind of lens to conduct the next step or action in our decision making. It really works.
Hmm. Um, the thing that intrigues me here, of course, obviously, the greatest superpower. Again, that there are others that we possess, and that we have always had. One of the questions that I have asked my guests early on in this series of programs, when we first started 17 years ago, I would ask three questions, which I'll be asking you at the end of this program. But those questions have changed over the years, and one of them was, "How powerful are we?" And I have concluded, rightly or wrongly, we are as we are more powerful than, and I use this in a very positive, shall we say, pacifistic manner. We are more powerful than a million atomic bombs that were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We have so much power, we don't even realize the things that we can do. I take, and I know that a lot of people will base power on money, how much money they have in the bank. And certainly, we're inundated with news stories on the internet, social media and so forth about one in particular, actually a couple, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Supposedly they're worth, both of them are worth billions of dollars. And they're doing a lot of great stuff in the physical.
Mhm.
I also take a look at those who are cloistered. You talked about how you said you married a monk, and there are people, men and women, all across this planet who cloister themselves away from the rest of society, and they spend their lives praying, meditating, toning, and so forth.
Mhm.
I often think of that as sort of the glue that is sort of holding civilization across the globe together. Because if they stopped, that civilization would, in to some degree, would sort of fall apart. That they are generating an energy that is, number one, moving us forward, but also sort of holding us all together. Do you think that's true? Do you think there's some truth to that?
About the glue that holds us together.
Through those activities of toning and meditating and praying and spinning
Oh,
prayer wheels and those kinds of things in these places around the world.
oh yes, I see what you're saying. The meditations that people do, there are a lot of group meditations and that are happening around globally, as you probably are aware. And prayers are is another, there's prayer groups as well. It's just a different form of energy, but those are vibrational in nature and they are very effective. Toning is one, and there's also the use of tuning forks, which are carrying vibrational energy. Um, but most importantly, it's also how each individual is um, practicing conscious thinking. Are we just watching TV and reading the news and getting absorbed in all the negativity? Because that's carrying vibrational energy. Or are we doing something to explore our inner world by meditating or taking a nature walk, or even listening to music that feels good to us, that feels like we're soaring or feeling empowered? Those are vibrational in nature too. The latter being more beneficial in my view if we're looking for a more positive reality, at least based on each person's preference. So yes, they really work, and I think when you talk about monastics or people who've cloistered themselves at different levels, it was a way to shut off all the five senses and just focus vibrationally, I guess, on a purpose of, let's say, saving the world, quote unquote.
Mhm.
But then I think we are at the age where we are learning more about our inner world and who we really are, that we are much more powerful than what we were led to believe, that we are in the age of empowerment, where we would, because we know who we really are, we would integrate that no matter what kind of negative news is happening around the world. So it's a very exciting time because I think consciousness is moving at the level that it has not before, primarily because there's a lot of contrast going on in the world, and that's waking people up. And one person who understands all of this is shining that light. And it is more powerful than 100 who are just watching TV every night, in my view. So because we're talking vibrational now, that vibrational energy not only affects an individual's reality, but it also affects the collective vibration of the planet.
One of the real great examples of that is when we get wound up in a certain emotion based upon a particular event that's happening in our lives. And I find it fascinating that human beings at large don't seem to make the connection between their low energy. I am so tired. I got to lay down, take a nap. And they're emoting over, oh, how are we going to pay the bills? Or, oh my God, she broke her leg. We got to get her to the hospital. And you could list 100,000 different things. And and then again, they're surprised sometimes at how fatigued they are physically and
Mm.
mentally because of the emotions that they are expending. I have a friend who likes to say that the reason why we're here on this planet is because we're being used as fuel for some alien entities that they 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 want us to be in conflict. It's the drama that generates the energy that keeps them alive. In other words, we are the equivalent of the fossil fuels that we burn in our cars and our generators and on and on and on. I don't know if that's true. It could be, but I'm sitting here thinking, wow, we're the ones who are all bent out of shape over slavery, and yet here we are. If you bought into that,
Mm.
they're enslaved because of that. I don't go there, but that's just one person's perspective. But at the same time, you offer in your book, Discover and Use Your Greatest Superpower, some practical aspects of these three different areas we're going to get into: metaphysics, spirituality, and bubblegum, which leads me to think there's some fun there too, I think, about that as we continue here with Carina Marshall here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for joining us here on the program as we talk with Carina Marshall and talk about her book, Discover and Use Your Greatest Superpower. Carina, before we go any further, what is the website you want to send people to?
The website of the book is unlimitedself.us or us. So,
Unlimitedself.us. We will be linked to that website so people can find out more about the work. Now, I started out talking and having you discuss metaphysics, but I want to talk about as you talk about in your book, the 16 metaphysical tools. What are they? Maybe we can just, run through them very quickly. And are they put in any particular priority order, or are they put together in categories, 4 and 4 and 4 and 4, that kind of thing? Talk to us a little bit about these metaphysical tools.
yes, before I do that, I just wanted to respond to what you were saying earlier that it is common practice if we're not conscious about the tools that we can do metaphysically to focus on, without knowing it, focus on a negative outcome that brings us down and makes us feel sad or depressed and all that. It's not repressing feelings. It's a matter of acknowledging the feeling, but at the same time, knowing that you can distract the mind to focus on something that is a better outcome that you prefer, contrary to the negative experience that you're experiencing. So I present in my book 16 metaphysical tools that will help a person's vibration shift from that negative energy that a person might be feeling towards something a little bit better until they can move their energy towards and create the momentum towards what they're desiring to achieve in their life. So I grouped the 16 tools into three areas. The first being the tuning in tools, because you have to know how to tune in first before you can practice it. And then we have the maintenance tools. And then I go on with explaining how each one could be maintained. But I just like to share the most, I guess, the simplest metaphysical tool, and it's nothing new. You've probably already been practicing it, and it's called the appreciation tool. Appreciation carries one of the highest vibrations in our lives, and by appreciating, you are shifting your energy towards something that's that's a higher vibration than wanting. Because when you appreciate, you're not saying, "Oh, I love this and I want this," right? You're just appreciating something for what it is. And that is vibrationally a very powerful shifting energy, a force actually.
Mhm.
And one tool is to that I tell my younger, like my daughter, because she likes to do a lot of photos in her iPhone, is to make a library and an album of one of the things, an album about the most wonderful experiences that she's had. That whenever she looks at the picture, she would smile, she would laugh, she'd feel good, and she'd probably even feel like, wow, I did that and never thought I could do. So that kind of album, whenever a person is feeling a little bit on the downside, can shift the focus a little bit by revisiting pictures because virtually you are vibrationally activating that kind of energy in the picture in your present moment. So that's just one of the simplest tools. And there's more, but we can talk about that, or you can get the book.
Absolutely. And they can get that. It's available, I'm sure, at Amazon and all of the other locations, as well as through your website. Give that to us one more time.
It's unlimitedself.us or US. Unlimited self is because we are all unlimited. If we just know how powerful each one of us is. Unlimitedself.us.
Hmm. Well, I got to tell you, I am always looking for ways to make some improvements. Um, one of the aspects of all of this has to do with taking care of self, making sure that we do that, because if we don't, how are we supposed to help anybody else?
Mm.
And so, to me, that's extremely important to do. And so I remind you folks, unlimitedself.us again will be linked to that website as well, so that you can find out more about how to discover and use your greatest superpower through metaphysics, spirituality, and bubblegum as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and we are talking about some fun stuff, I'd like to think, with Carina Marshall, and we're talking about how to discover and use your greatest superpower. Talk to us. We'll jump now into the fun stuff. Talk to us about this aspect of what does bubblegum have to do with our superpower, other than getting it stuck on the bottom of our shoe?
Well, when I was a kid, I loved bubblegum, and between you and I still do. Well, bubblegum to me, just like chewing gum, represents a very relaxing thing to do, and you're not thinking of anything. You're taking the mind out of it. You're doing something else, or you're enjoying doing something while you're chewing. So, in the context of using that as a using the word bubblegum, I'm presenting the ideas that may be a little bit of a leading edge to some people. The concept of vibrational energy, the concept of metaphysics, and you create your reality, and that there are two of you. It's a little bit too much sometimes, but it's really a very simple and relaxing way. If you could just allow it and assume that, hey, that could be true. Why don't I try it out? Personal experience is the key because you can't take my word for it, right? Words don't teach, only experience does.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is true. And by the way, to that extent, one thing I try to impart to people is from a conversation I had with someone who asked me to talk about my mistakes in life. It was a little bit of a heated conversation, but I said, I've never made a mistake in my life. I've had learning experiences and life lessons, but that's one of the reasons why we're here. And when you have that perspective, now I know that goes against the grain for a lot of people because they want us to believe that there is this thing in some philosophies, that there's this so-called original sin that we have.
Yes.
I remember also reading in the same section of that book that the sins of the father are passed on to the sins of the son to the seventh generation. Then it's over. Well, I would have to say that I am, who knows how many hundreds of thousands of generations from Adam, if he actually did exist. And I'm not going to argue that particular point. But the point is that it's like everything that seems to come out of some of these philosophies has to do with being feeling guilty and
Mhm.
shame, and of course the fear, that we've sinned. It's like, so what you're telling me is that a baby who is born straight out of its mother's womb, uh, basically already by just entering this world is doomed. But that also goes contrary to my understanding of what unconditional love is.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about that, about unconditional love. Now, in a conversation I had not too long ago with one of my guests, even by making reference to it as unconditional love, we're actually putting a condition on it, which sounds kind of weird, but I suppose in a manner of speaking, it is true. But let's talk about what that really is for us who choose to believe that there is a creator, a divine planner or designer, and what have you. Uh, Talk to us about your perspective on that.
Yes, I believe we came from joy or unconditional love, and we were born joyful. We were born full of love. And then, of course, we have parents and we have the physical world and the density of the vibration of the world where we form beliefs and we are programmed to think a certain way.
Mhm.
And that's natural because we want to be safe, and we our parents want to nurture us and give us good lives, so to speak. um, but really, if one learns to explore one's inner world, that unconditional love part is still there. You just have, each one of us just has to tune into that, which is the non-physical version of us connected to our creator, if you call it that way, or source, or unconditional love as a frequency itself. I've been exposed to a lot of different spiritual beliefs, if you call it that way, or even channeled information from non-physical, so to speak. But my filter in all of this, Richard, does it feel like it's the frequency of love? Does it feel like it's the frequency of peace? And does it feel like the frequency of joy? That's my filter. And my the way I know about it is through how I feel. I think unconditional love is always there, always beaming to each one of us. But are we open to it? Are we allowing ourselves to receive it by understanding how our inner world works and also using some tools that help us tune in to what's being beamed to us? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does. It does indeed. I mean, I have a whole section in my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, talking about this whole aspect of unconditional love. And I conclude that um, we were created by love, out of love, to be loved
Mhm.
unconditionally. And yet there are philosophies that will say, no, there's a condition. You have to do this in order to get there.
Mhm.
And using a term from our own civilized world, they call that extortion. It's like the mob goes to your store and says you got to pay us X number of dollars so that you don't have to worry about crime in your store. You know,
Yeah.
I
May I also interject a little bit here about, that's pretty common about religions too. And I don't mean to brand religions as bad or anything, but it's just historically, through the years, we've seen religion as a way of also controlling our belief that we are powerful beings, because there's always this polarized dual approach to we're insignificant, we're nothing without somebody up out there who's giving the power to us. And I
Mhm.
think that's really an old school belief, and we are in an age of empowerment, and consciousness is starting to really increase at the level that has not been seen before. So it's a very exciting time.
It is. I keep hearing that phrase from different people talking about how it is an exciting time. Even one of my guests who is connected to that spiritual realm where, they could converse with my father or my elder sister or my best friend. They say that the other side basically looks at us as heroes. And I don't necessarily see myself as such, but I can appreciate that because we chose to be here at this time, going through all of this supposed chaos. But, when you look out into the universe through, let's say, the James Webb or the Hubble telescope, and you see all kinds of things that are flying all over the place, asteroids. And I mean, we have one that's coming our way, they say. And it's like we call that chaos. But when we look at all of that stuff, unless it's hurtling towards Earth, there's no judgment there. It's like, ooh, it's like watching fireworks, right?
Mhm.
And even on the subatomic level, the same thing is happening. As above, so below. That's kind of how I look at it. But we have all this judgment here in this realm in which we live. When in fact, as the line from Desiderata says, and the universe is unfolding as it should. Is that part of recognizing that, number one, there's nothing I can do about the volcanoes or the earthquakes or the floods or whatever it is. There's nothing I can do about that. All I can deal with is me. Is that an area where if we would just get that, that might contribute to our arsenal of superpowers?
Oh, absolutely. We might laugh at it and say, "Oh, I'm so insignificant compared to billions of people. How can I save the world?" It starts with the light within each one of us, and that's why the work on our inner world is really important, because when we know how to allow that connection with divine spirit and that light that we carry, we are contributing to the collective energy of the planet. So we are very empowered. We are also very powerful. So it's really an important message that I think people can start feeling excited if they really just explore it a little bit more.
Yeah. The people that you connect with, and I believe that the universe, draws to us those experiences as well as people. But do you still run into those who say, no, 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 you're way off base because it says over here in this book or that book? Uh, how do you address that perspective? Because to say, oh no, you're wrong, because does not help the conversation, which is what's happened here in this country for the last
Mhm.
15, 20 years and more, that we want to make the other person wrong and us right. And so talk to us a little bit about that.
First of all, I never say you are wrong.
I know you do.
Because they feel right wherever they are. Everybody has their path, and we're all evolving in different levels. And when I say levels, it doesn't mean that one level is better than the other, because we all have our own blueprint on how we're living our lives. Um, I think it's just really important to again, that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book during the pandemic lockdown, and it just kind of came out of me. I had no ambition about writing a book or anything of that sort, but I had been practicing what I wrote in the book, and I said, well, I think it might be helpful if I share how I view things, instead of what I hear from my friends, how depressed they are. Some of them even think it's the end of the world kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's why I wrote the book. And I think it's really important to explore our inner world through meditation, through tuning in, using some of the metaphysical tools that I suggested in the book, and just see where life takes you when you start practicing those things. It's going to be very exciting.
Do you see, well, I wanted to ask because of the way you described how this book came about. You don't use the word channeled to describe how your book came about necessarily. You might use the word inspired.
I think inspired and channeled are the same because we are all channels. We are all channelers. Some people channel their ego more, and some people are able to channel a different kind of frequency above and beyond what their usual thinking is.
Mhm.
My husband and I were just talking yesterday. We're saying, we're tired of recycled thinking. It's all this thing going around and around. It's like we want to transcend that.
Mhm.
And in transcending that kind of recycled thinking, we get to discover that there is so much out there, a bigger, grander perspective that actually feels exciting and more hopeful about a better future. But each one of us carries that energy and vibration to make that happen.
Mm,
So it's
that's
really,
cool.
yeah.
That, I couldn't agree with you more from that standpoint. It's why we use the phraseology that I use to say basically that we're looking for those new ways of living because the old ways don't work. Just look around you. They aren't working. Not for everybody. Now, that's not to say that, we start getting into a whole nother realm here, where, well, if the universe is unfolding as it should, then the people who aren't doing as well as some of these other people, well, that's the way the universe is. You can't fight the universe. But at the same time, there is an aspect of helping people um, to raise their consciousness and that of the world. The best analogy is, and this applies more like, for example, if you're working somewhere, you're walking up a ladder, and you have someone above you who has their hand down to help you up. You in turn have a hand down to help up the person below you, and that's to me that's really what we're talking about here is helping and supporting one another. Each person though has to choose the kind of life that they want to live. I'll be honest with you. I never expected to be living in Santa Barbara, California, one of the most expensive places on the planet to live. And I've been here for 18 years and been loving every minute of it. Yeah, there are challenges. Sure. So, but if I was still back in Phoenix, there would be challenges. Or if my wife and I were to move where we really want to move, Ireland, there'd be challenges there too. But there would also be wonderful experiences to have,
Mhm.
and so there is a certain, I don't know if it's a paradox or dichotomy, what have you, in that mindset that I want to change the world, Carina. I want to change the world. Yeah, but my vision of what the world should be changed to is going to be different from yours or the next person or the next person. And I guess that's where we have to acquiesce and say, okay, universe, what do you want? Where do I go? What's next?
I think that yeah, I'm with you, Richard. I think that when we realize and tune into our superpower, we realize we are actually elements of love and we can practice unconditional love. It might sound too perfect. Unconditional, what do you mean? I'm gonna I'm gonna love this person that I didn't vote for. And he's like, whoa. Um, but what I mean about that is that we can vibrate in a way that we are transcending what's happening in the physical world, and and even us. As simple as when you're checking out in the grocery store and there's this cashier who you know is not happy with their job and he doesn't, and they don't even look at you, and you just feel their energy that they're not happy where they are.
Yeah.
Even just engaging them in a pleasant conversation or something that activates that love or that connection with that human being, it always has worked for me. And I feel really good when I'm able to do that because I feel at that moment I was sharing my light, and not that he doesn't have his own. I was trying to activate it, and in that moment, it activates his light too. So there are many situations where we can practice what I label unconditional love in so many different little things, and it makes the world of difference because we are in essence, collectively, contributing collectively to a better energy for the planet. And let's see what happens.
We're talking with Carina Marshall. Discover and use your greatest superpower, metaphysics, spirituality, and bubblegum. And we'll talk more about all of these elements as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host for Tell Me Your Story with Carina Marshall. And the website, ladies and gentlemen, unlimitedself.us. That's unlimitedself.us. You can go there and find out more about what she's doing, and as well order a book that's, I'm sure, available on Amazon as well as other outlets. And we certainly hope that you will get a copy of it. The elements that you reference, and we've talked a little bit about the metaphysics and, of course, the bubblegum and spirituality. Um, you do you find you used that description just a few moments ago of changing the vibration or frequency of a particular situation, the dynamics, if you will, by shifting your vibration. Um, you are you able to stay in that state longer as time goes on? It sort of becomes more a second nature to you. That's kind of like with me and my intuition. The more I listen and follow the promptings and trust,
Mhm.
um, the more I don't have to think about it. When an impression comes, when a prompting comes, I just do it because I know I can trust it. Are you in that place where, you're super with your superpower, you just trust it and it does sort of become second nature? Not that you take it for granted, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, definitely. Because when you start practicing it, you build the momentum and it becomes second nature. Just like with exercise, you build muscles. So it's as you start practicing it and realize that there is a desired effect from what you're practicing, then it builds up the momentum that becomes second nature. So it's a really powerful way to start looking at life in a totally different perspective. And as you said earlier, like you can never get it wrong. Anything that you do is because there's a purpose. It's just calibrating you to an area where you would find things a little better.
Yeah. And I think too that there are so many messages, so much programming that we've received from birth up to, say, this point, what have you, through our childhood, especially. I think it's said that you get the majority of your programming by the time you're 8 or 9 years old.
That's right. Yeah.
You know,
Heard that too.
and there are people, I would think, such as yourself, who are helping us to uh, reprogram or overwrite the old program. And it seems to me that one of the first steps is that we need to acknowledge that old programming and what it has done, so to speak, for us and to us. And then maybe, do you go in and lay over the top of that a whole new program, or can you go in and tweak the existing program so now it actually consciously, intentionally, i.e., superpowerly,
Mhm.
serves us?
Well, once you've cracked the cosmic egg, so to speak, and you start popping out from that fundamentalistic belief system, which is kind of one-dimensional, then you realize that there's a whole inner world that you have that's very exciting. And again, it's like Westerners, we're proud, even though I'm Asian in ethnic, but I grew up, most of my time here in the US. So Westerners are proud, we're proud of our monotheism, believing in one God. And, it's
Mm.
even in our dollar bill, in God we trust. That's fine.
Mhm.
And yet most of us Westerners don't believe in oneness. There's a lot of polarity. And everyone wants to transcend duality, but they don't practice it.
Well, how about the other phrase on the dollar bill, e pluribus unum, from many one?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
I paraphrase, but it's like, hello.
That's right. I mean, and well, like 30, 40 years ago, I remember when I first heard the phrase, we are all one, I started questioning, like, what does that mean? You mean, Osama bin Laden, who destroyed two of buildings and killed a lot of people? I'm one with this person. I could not understand it, but I only bring that example because when people ask questions about that, primarily those that question their beliefs, that's a very good start because you start becoming aware. You become aware that, oh, I had this belief before, but I'm discovering something new about this belief that may not hold up anymore. And that's part of the expansion of our consciousness, which is a very exciting time.
It truly is. I sometimes think about the time in which I live today. We're in the 21st century. I went through a guided hypnosis called LBL, or Life Between Lives, where they took me back. The practitioner took me back to my previous life before this one, to my through my death, and to that space between that lifetime and this one. Now, first of all, I loved the life that I was living in the previous life. It's not that far off from this one. Not that I was in broadcasting per se. I was a farmer or rancher,
Wow.
and I knew everybody, and it was great. And then one day I decided it was time for me to leave. So I go out, I sit out on my porch, put my feet up on the rail in front of the house there, tip my hat back and say, it's been a good life. And I just left.
Wow.
And it's like, wow, okay, could we learn how to do that? I mean, because, it would be so much easier than the fear
Mhm.
dying. But that experience between the lives that is talked about by Dr. Newton in his many books
Mhm.
about life between lives research was fascinating to me because it sort of gave a clue as to how came into this lifetime with what we do have, you know. And I know that the children, very young children, they do remember, some of them do remember a lot from the previous life or lives,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they bring that forward. Do you see that particular element as beneficial in terms of the newer humans that are coming in, say the last 10 or 20 years? Uh,
Mhm.
they are bringing forth a lot of this, so we'll call it ancient knowledge and wisdom that we all need to impart or take part in, or I like to use the word, we should grok from stranger in a strange land and assimilate so that we can really affect change within ourselves that then I'm grateful for this aspect, as it then changes the world around us.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, as I mentioned earlier, since we are all energy and energy is never destroyed, when we physically die or leave the world, we are just changing in form. So, lives between lives, reincarnation, and non-physical beings. I mean, in my experience, I truly believe that while we're here in the physical world right now talking to each other, there is a non-physical part of me that's also out there, um, in the non-physical part of reality
Mhm.
that I can tune in, which is basically the message of my book, which is how you discover your superpower and you transcend uh, the limitation of time, space, and form, and look at your life as if you're witnessing it while you are still here. And I think that's the integration that we all need, and that most yogis actually practice, where you could operate in the world of business, earning money and sending the kids to school, but at the same time have this big perspective that you are also witnessing yourself and incorporating that we are really beings of light, of love, and that we can practice that and integrate that in every level of our interaction and even our taking care of ourselves, which is also very important. You mentioned earlier about taking care of the self, and some, like you, I was raised Catholic, so there's all this guilt feelings about, oh, that's too selfish, and don't do that. You have to think of others. So I grew up as an Asian, pleasing other people and thinking, oh, what will they think, But when I say take care of yourself first, the self is not just your physical self. The self also includes your non-physical self, your connection with your divine spirit. And in that perspective, you are taking care of your whole self, which are beings of light. We are beings of love.
Yeah. There's a there was an episode of Star Trek Next Generation where this young man was being chased across the galaxy by the authorities of the planet where he came from because he was exhibiting certain characteristics that he didn't even understand, but that frightened them. So they needed to capture him and incarcerate him so that he wouldn't, quote unquote, infect the population. As the program progresses, he begins to transform into, in essence, a golden light body.
Mm.
And he is actually able to, shall we say, fly right through the walls of the ship and out into space. And off he goes. And of course, those that were pursuing him, they refused to accept the transformation. So we're not going to tell anybody about this. I don't care if we saw it and we were there and we witnessed it and so forth. It's an aberration. It's in direct violation of what we believe and teach and so forth. And it seems to me that that's sort of the direction that we as the human race are going. There are some of us, I hope I'm one of them, who are going to experience this kind of almost instantaneous transformation to a new level, still in the physical, that the rest of society is not ready for. And that's where I think it's so important for us to change our vibration, raise our vibration. And that's what your book is really teaching us, isn't it?
Yes, thank you very much for elaborating it in that manner. That's a really good way to present the message of the book. And just yesterday too, my husband and I were saying, and he was a yoga monk for 35 years. So we have this really interesting conversation sometime. And we're saying maybe there's only two kinds of people in this planet, those who want to hear the truth and those who want to hear that they are correct.
Ah, yes.
So I guess for those of us who are really truth seekers, um, discovering our inner world is really key, and it will actually help our planet as well. And then we get to understand how celebrating a life, no matter what's going on, is not only a possibility but a reality.
Talk to us a little bit about the difference between truth and the truth from your perspective.
From my perspective, truth is whatever is vibrating as peace, as love, and as joy. And it's manifesting in ways that feel empowering and loving.
Mhm.
And truth is different for every person, but that's my definition of truth.
And the truth?
The truth is that we are more
Truth?
powerful than anybody that we know we are. We are more than anything and everything we're seeking. We are really elements and vessels of love, and we can practice that love and light for for all of not only for us, but for all of the planet.
What I find so interesting, fascinating, intriguing is the progression of not only philosophies, but also of the level of acceptance on some level of the differences between us. And and it sort of started out over the last 3, 4, 500 years. Um, it dealt with skin color, and here and in the 20th century we made some progress, at least in this country, some progress in that regard. Then we moved on to gender. Women got the right to vote and so forth and so on. Then we moved later into the century, the 20th century, into same sex versus opposite sex relationships. Who do you love? And now, here in the 21st century, we're dealing with another difference. And I equate this to the concept of cosmetic surgery, where I used to think, oh, why are you doing that? You need to go to see a therapist to deal with why you don't feel good about yourself, you know? And then I began to realize that when someone has cosmetic surgery, whether it's the nose or the breast, whatever it is, and they come out the other side and they see themselves and they like themselves, they feel better, they have confidence, they have greater self-esteem, and they're able to go on and grab onto that superpower, if you will. But now we have a segment of our society that doesn't feel comfortable in the body that they're in, the gender body that they're in. That seems to me like this next level that we have approached, and there will come a point at which there will be a certain level of acceptance. I don't know what the next level will be. Well, maybe it will be the example from the Star Trek episode I mentioned. But it feels like, Carina, like we are making progress, and you and I, we just have to keep doing what we're doing with our vibration, and be patient, and let the universe unfold as it should. What are your thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, well, we are making progress. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to write my book if it was like 100 years ago. I could have been burned in the stakes. And I say that in the introduction of my book. Yeah, I mean, but more and more, you see a lot of podcasts, books, and videos being available about spiritual upliftment, and that there are so many modalities now, even channelers sending the messages that are as diverse as you would like them.
Mhm.
That's why I think it's really important to know what is your filter, and by how you feel. I
Yeah.
think our feelings are directly connected, which is through our intuition, that is directly connected to the non-physical part of us, that is actually linked to your creator, or if you call it source, or divine spirit. I call it the unlimited self, which is really part of us. Christians might call it finding the God within you. But language aside, it's really who we really are. We are made out of love and joy and peace, and we are going back to that. And this is all part of our journey.
Mm. Carina Marshall, discover and use your greatest superpower: metaphysics, spirituality, and bubblegum, here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and we have basically come to this conclusion of this particular conversation. Although I would love to continue this. This is a lot of fun to talk about these different aspects of not only our existence, but what we can make of our existence. And I know there are a lot of additional questions that I could be asking you, but I'll have to save those for another time and have you back again to converse more about how to discover and use my greatest superpower. So thank you so much for being here to share.
Thank you, Richard. It's been an honor and I had fun. So, all the best, and we love you.
Well, thank you. I do have those three final questions, if you remember, that I ask all of my guests. And I thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. The first of those questions is, who is Carina Marshall?
Carina Marshall is a person who's trying to sustain my momentum of personal exploration. Every day I get to challenge and question my old beliefs. And I've discovered that my old sense of self is limiting and increasingly boring. So, so it leads me to think new thoughts and reach continuously beyond what I thought were my boundaries. And I realize I am light, I am love, and I'm here to share.
What gets you up in the morning?
The expectation or the eagerness that, oh, there are birds singing in my garden, there's a cup of coffee, and there's a new adventure for the day and what the universe will bring.
Hmm. And finally, what was your best day?
Every day is my best day. It sounds so apple pie and that kind of stuff, but every day is a best day because whatever I'm feeling, uh, whether it's up or down, it's always a revelation. So every day is the best day.
Hmm. Well, I want to thank you once again for being with us here on the program. This has been a real joy, and I'm hoping that we can get together again to continue this conversation. And again, I thank you so much for sharing with us here on the program. It's exciting where we are today. It really is.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Richard.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to all. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.